The current vast scenario of world languages amounts to at least 7,000 language systems, including thousands of alphabets and as many dialects. However, several linguists agree that by the end of the century over half of them are going to disappear, as the speakers who ensure their continuity will have died. Given the actual bubble tower that the globalized world could be compared to, consisting in 8 language families, English and French are the only ones spoken in all 5 continents for number of natives and learners. Nevertheless, a distinction between the two is necessary. More learners than natives speak English globally. Hence, its status of Globish language, whose neutrality is due to its being used as a lingua franca, aiming at conveying universal knowledge through intelligible codes like economy, computer science, sport, or diplomacy. English has by now attained the role of lingua franca. As to French, data point out that by 2030, 80% of French native speakers will be living in Africa, evidence of a bond between former colonies and motherland, far stronger and longer lasting than the political one. To date, new developing countries like China and India are gradually establishing themselves on the world geopolitical stage, so as to threat the centuries-old English, French, and Spanish, which are the causes and the speed of such language eclipse. Nowadays, only 6 languages are used in diplomacy, above all English and French, unlike Italian, which is the reference language of the European identity. Italian is the language of culture, not only due to its past, when it was spoken in the Renaissance courts, as well as in the world of diplomacy and art, but also thanks to the spread that Italian goods have nowadays all over the world, in particular food and fashion. This factor should encourage the diffusion of our culture. Thus, one wonders how the West is going to cope with the spread of Asian languages like Arab, Chinese, or Hindi. On the one hand, the Silk Road project has been launched by the Chinese president in order to create new trade routes to boost Peking influence. On the other hand, the Road of Freedom tends to enhance the relationship between Europe and India. It is worth considering also the growing phenomenon of migrations towards the European area. New words such as refugee, clandestine, illegal, asylum seeker were coined to describe a reality which the European melting pot has to cope with. The end of the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the digital era led to the end of the so-called isms of the last century, as well as of the European cultural primacy. East and West are thoughts opposing their conflicting values. Given this clashing context, what can be the role of a cultural mediator? Communicative skills become essential to make intercultural connection effective. This requires competence, but, most of all, awareness in order to understand the cultural context. This way, the precious role of a mediator is to be a sort of bridge connecting different backgrounds. Similarly, the art of translation requires the ability to remove cultural barriers, avoiding any kind of prejudice against cultures other than ours. The music of words needs an expert musician who skillfully plays their sound.